I'd like to welcome to the show, one of my favorite photographers, a guy that's been in the business for 40 plus years and just retired. I couldn't believe I heard the news. Welcome to the show, legendary Andrew Bernstein.
Thank you, Matt.
Appreciate
Good
you.
to
Good to
see
see
you.
you. It's been a
Yes, you
minute.
too,
So
man.
you've officially retired after 43 years?
Yeah, it took a little while.
I mean,
for 4 decades.
Will we see an MJ return at any point? Or are you done?
No, I went to see my back
Oh
specialist, and he said,
man,
I think you got to walk off the court while you still can walk
can
off the
walk.
court. No, my back was a mess, and I've been struggling the last few years with the traveling and just the schlepping
It's
around.
a lot.
And I still love doing it, and I left when I felt it was time to go. But the NBA was great about sort of weaning me off the court, less road games. I was doing like every third game at home, so it was a good time to go.
43 years and around all sports, not just NBA. We were talking before we got on air about, my team is the Niners, and you're talking about I go back with Montana and Rice and
Yeah.
Steve Young at the old Candlestick Parks. I mean, what got you into photography, but particularly sports photography?
Well, as a kid, I was 14. My dad bought me my first camera. And I wasn't interested at all in photography, but we took a trip to the Western United States. I grew up in Brooklyn, so the furthest west I ever got was New Jersey. So when I got to see, the Grand Canyon and Yosemite and all the great national parks, and he taught me all the basics for photography, but his film cameras and all manual stuff and all that business. And I had to just learn on the fly, and I just took to it. It was kind of like maybe the first time you went out on the court when you were a kid and you just fell in love with the game and bouncing the ball, and that's how I felt. And I took it seriously in high school, and I went to college for it at UMass. In the shadow of Dr. J. I came in after him, and then transferred out here in my junior year to a place called Art Center, and became an assistant for Sports Illustrated. And that's really where I got my on-the-job training, going to NBA games and learning how to light arenas like Pauley Pavilion and near and dear to your heart, and the Forum, and of course the old sports arena for hockey and basketball primarily. And I was just in the right place at the right time. I was there at the beginning of Showtime, and the NBA was starting to ramp up their need for photography. And I'm a Brooklyn guy. I have a little bit of moxie in me, and was able to kind of push the door open a little bit and kind of create some opportunity for myself.
I mean, looking back now, again, you literally just retired in May, but can you give me possibly your top 3 to 5 moments you feel like you've personally covered?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I mean, NBA wise, I could give you a million of them, well, probably 50 of them. But I was there for Kirk Gibson's home run. I was working for the Dodgers back then.
Okay.
And that was monumental.
88?
88.
Yeah.
Game one of the World Series. I felt like literally that the stadium was going to crack in half. It was so unbelievable. And then, Jordan's first championship, which at the time was pretty monumental because it took him 7 years to get there, but none of us knew, of course, that he had 5 more coming. All the time I spent with Showtime, with Riley and Magic and all those guys, it was just amazing. And of course, I was with Phil Jackson for all 11 of his championships.
Wow.
So I was the first guy always in the locker room. I remember this like it was yesterday. And the first year we won with the Bulls, I'm the first guy in the locker room, champagne, the whole thing. And then he sees me in there. Phil always knew what was going on in his locker room. Second year, I'm in the locker room, first guy in, he's giving me the eye. Third time in, he goes, "This is going to become a habit, huh, Andy?" I said, "Well, I hope so, Coach, because I love coming in here." So, that was great. And then, of course, spending 20 years with the Mamba was, as an experience, was amazing. And I can't leave out the Dream Team, because the Dream Team, if I could have retired after the Dream Team
92.
experience, would have been a good career, but it was just at the start.
But obviously, it's not just obviously photography. You're around these guys. Obviously, you and Kobe were business partners, and you were his personal guy. But you're around Michael, and you're around Joe Montana, and all these guys, and Phil, and Kobe, and Shaq. I mean, what was that experience like? You were around the greatest of the greatest across the board.
Well, you guys are just guys. You
Right.
happen to play a sport
Right.
that I love, and you're tremendous athletes, all of you guys. But when it comes down to it, we all share common stuff. We're all just trying to make it in our profession. I was glad to be there to help document Showtime and help document the Shaq and Kobe era and Jordan era. And I think there was some appreciation of that, I guess, that some of my photos tended to sort of live on. But I just love the one-on-one conversation. I mean, you and I had, I don't know how many conversations in the locker room and after a game or practice or on the bus or whatever. And that was the most fun, just hanging with the guys, really.
Talk to us about when you first met Kobe and how the relationship lasted a lifetime.
Well, he was quite a phenomenon coming out of high school. Although, honestly, I don't know about you, but like being in the West Coast, we didn't hear that much about him. I mean, he's a kid out of Philadelphia, suburban Philadelphia. The Lakers made this crazy trade with beloved Vlade Divac going to Charlotte, and then if you remember, Vlade like threatened to retire, which would have kiboshed the whole trade. But somehow Jerry West was able to make some magic, and here this kid comes out. He just turned 18 years old. And he's in front of me on Media Day. And you know what Media Day is like? It's like chaos. It's like a giant circus, sets all over the Laker gym. And you guys have to go from one set to the next, doing an interview and a photo shoot and a marketing thing and whatever. And he came on my set and for his first headshot in the Laker uniform. And like any new player, probably did this with you, that if I don't know you, I walk in and before I take the picture, I go and introduce myself. It's a respectful thing. I say, "Hey, Kobe, I'm Andy Bernstein. I'm your team photographer." And he literally is shaking my hand, looking me in the eye with those eyes. He goes, "Well, I know who you are, man."
Wow.
And
cool.
I'm thinking it's kind of a smart ass thing to say.
You think so?
I mean, who says that to somebody? And I said to him, I said, "I don't know how that's possible because we never met." And he goes, and he literally in a beat, he said, "Well, I had all your posters in my room growing up." And in that instant, Matt, it was like
it changed.
But who reads photo credits on a poster, for God's sake? Him. And I came to learn over the years, especially when we did our book together, that he just didn't want a nice poster of MJ or Dr. J or Isaiah or Magic, all the guys that he wanted to be like. He studied it like, almost like a surgeon was dissecting something. And in those beautiful photos, he was breaking down everything, muscle tone, what the guy's looking at, where his hips are in relation to his hands, all that stuff. And I don't know, from that moment on, I just knew there was something about this kid that, I was 20 years older than him at the time. He was 18, I was 38. And they kind of reminded me a little bit of me at 18, kind of a smart ass at a bit, but also wanting to prove himself. He was literally a boy among men, and he looked like he was 14. I mean, he really did. And, skinny as anything. And that relationship just built over time.
Same question I just asked before. Do you have 5 favorites of Kobe?
Oh, man. Ooh, great question.
You got all of them, but...
Well, there was some stuff during USA Basketball. I wasn't there when he won the gold either time, but just seeing him around the guys was great. The famous kind of moment of Shaq carrying him on his back in Indiana. I think it was game 2 or something.
Yeah, when he got
a couple of game winners I was there for. 2010 was amazing in the locker room where the guys are just showering him with champagne and he's got his arms out, and some great moments with his family. We just passed the anniversary, and I was just looking back on some photos of he and Gigi together, and it breaks all our heart, but I was just so glad to be there to document that for Vanessa now.
Yeah.
So, he was one of a kind, really.
The Achilles game versus the Warriors. You were in that building.
Yeah.
What was the energy like when that happened?
I had never been in a place that size that you could hear a pin drop because everybody knew something happened. It was such an innocuous thing. As you remember, he made a move and boom, went down like a ton of bricks. I was on the other end. So I actually had a good angle on it, and had him actually
Because
go
he was sitting
right
towards you, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, but he was like on the other
Other side of the court, yep.
and just like the sea parted, and I was able to get a picture of him going right to his Achilles in the moment. And then Gary came out, as you remember, and they go to the bench, and of course, legendary Mamba fashion, he goes out and shoots the free throws.
Only him.
But I honestly, Matt, I'd never really talked about this, but I was so broken up when that happened, because here he is in the 16th season. Yeah. It's got to be the end. I mean, nobody in the 16th season comes back from something like that, and he had already accomplished so much already. Yep. And I didn't have the heart to go in the locker room after the game, and he held that sort of impromptu press conference where he was tearing up, and I don't regret that I wasn't there for that, but I was there in the hall when he came out with the crutches, and the girls were waiting for him, and Vanessa, and it was a poignant moment. But he came out of that. Remember Gary Vitti had that door, sort of side door, one. And he came out with a smile on his face because his girls were out there, and he was positive from that moment on. He had his moment of concern and worry, and I'm sure he was scared that was the end. But and then I was there for his rehab. I was actually there when when Dr. Elatrash took the stitches out, and was telling, look, you got to take it easy. You got to have this boot.
Right.
You got to behave yourself.
Definitely got to tell him that.
Yeah. Right.
Some say that night kind of gave birth to the Mamba mentality. I mean, he was always the Mamba, but like you said, to think, you thinking it was be over. I think a lot of people probably had similar sentiments to you. Like, this guy's accomplished everything. He's won all these championships. There's no way he's coming back. And I think he's the one person we both know that once he turns this on to something, like, just get out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the Mamba mentality was definitely there before that. But for him to come back and be really stronger than he was when he went down, I wouldn't say he was as strong as he was, at the height of his career. Yeah. But for him to not let an injury define when he was going to leave the game, and to come back as strong as he did, drop 60 in his last game, Mamba out. I mean,
crazy.
Who could write that? I mean,
only him.
We're in Hollywood. Nobody could have written that. It was amazing.
Outside of sports, outside of basketball, some of your favorite sporting moments you've been able to kind of be a part of.
Oh, yeah. As I mentioned the Kirk Gibson game, worked for the Dodgers during that World Series. I think I shot 3 or 4 Super Bowls. That was super fun. I was around some really good college basketball. I used to cover the USC women's team when Cheryl Miller was there.
Playing, okay.
And when Lisa Leslie was there. Loved covering that. And back in the early days of my career, I covered really anything everything I can get a credential for. If it was women's field hockey or water polo, I didn't care because I needed to be building my portfolio. Many of the international events that the NBA has done. I was at the first McDonald's championship. Being in the NBA bubble was quite the experience. Were
you there the whole time?
I was there 53 days. Wow. Yeah, 53 days. I was there for the end, so when the very end of the regular season, playoffs, and then into the finals.
Interesting time.
Yeah.
Let's go through some of the photos that you've taken that we kind of pulled to the. Oh, these are early ones of me.
Ooh.
Those Clipper teams.
Now we're talking.
You were around those Clipper teams a lot.
I was.
Those Lob City teams were very talented. We just couldn't get over. I mean, I think we couldn't get out of our own way.
Yeah.
But that was a fun team and a fun time in LA. That was kind of a time where Kobe was down a little bit.
Yep.
And those Lob City teams were exciting. This is, I think, the last time we played against each other.
Yeah.
I was Memphis. He was there. He had just gave the Twins his jerseys. I don't know if you were in there for that.
Yes.
We got a picture of the Twins.
I think that's my picture.
Yeah, that is your picture. Yeah. But I'm saying I'm not sure if you got the picture with him and the Twins because he gave them and they were only like 7, 8 years old maybe.
Yeah.
But that was that. We saw you everywhere.
Yeah.
I know you just weren't at our games.
Right.
I mean, how many days a week would you be at Staples on a good week?
Well, I became the director of photography for AEG, which at that time was just Staples Center when it opened. Actually, before it opened in 1998, but 99 when the building opened, then of course got the theater. So my company still to this day in the 25th year of being the house photographers for the complex. So I was there a lot. My office was in the building. I mean, if you know where the Laker banners are, in the upper concourse, there's a bunch of offices back there. That's where my office was. And so I was there for every Laker home game, every Clipper home game, and I've been the LA Kings team photographer for 4 decades.
So you saw the great one.
Yeah, so I was living there, which wasn't great. Not conducive to family life when you have kids growing up at home, you know. And then when I'm not there, I was on the road.
Yeah.
So
that's a tough life. I mean, you mentioned at the end that grind is what kind of pushed me away from the game. I felt like I was missing so much time, and I mean, your schedule was more hectic than mine because I just had to go on mine. You have to go cover the entire, realm of the league. So
yeah, no, the NBA was great, but they push you.
They work you.
They work you, and for the Grammy trip, for example, when the building shuts down, I mean, I'd be on the road, 2 weeks in a row doing 9-10 games, and then they'd be like, "Oh, well, you have a day in between. Go to Chicago and do that game." Like, wait a minute,
not take a breather,
right?
Not enjoy your day off.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's my rookie year. That's 2002 or 3.
Wow,
old school Clippers. And
that is definitely old school Clippers.
That's me and Barron. Barron just got here. That's the We Believe run right there.
Oh, that was such, I left that out because, and I should remember, that was one of the greatest runs that I was ever part of.
Really?
Oh, to see you guys kick Dallas's ass at home on that. I was there for that game.
Yeah, that game
Barrett had that dunk over Karolinko.
Yeah.
That's my picture. And the excitement in that building in Oracle. I mean, they talk about the Warriors, the Steph Curry Warriors, which we got to take our hat off to. But what you guys did.
The energy was different.
Man, little engine
different
that
energy,
could.
Different energy. Some more iconic photos. Wow, MJ and his dad. Kobe and MJ.
Yeah, there was some moments.
When you kind of look back, I mean, like for me, this would be like looking back at like old game footage or something. Like, how do you? I mean, obviously it's fresh, but like, what are you gonna miss about? I mean, you had one of the greatest jobs anyone can ever ask for who was a sports fan. What are you gonna miss the most?
Yeah, I really miss being around the guys. I miss the routine of getting there, getting the arena at a certain time. I had a very strict routine. Had a great crew that I worked with that, would set up everything for me. Seeing all the fellas come in and kibitzing in the training room with Gary Vitti, and then
Gary,
all the fans that I knew, both teams courtside, and of course the referees and all that stuff. And then getting to game time and then locking in and being there to record truly the greatest athletes on the face of the earth. I mean, I know that's a cliche, and David Stern loved talking about that, but it's really true. I mean, as a photographer, professional basketball athletes are a gift.
Absolutely, and we were thankful to have someone like you capturing those moments. Before you get out of here, tell us a little bit about your podcast, Legends of Sports.
Thank you. Well, listen, man, I'm just trying to grow up to be like you, man. Well, my partners, I have 2 really close friends who are partners, both in the sports business in different areas. And we were seeing about 10 years ago or so that a lot of guys were struggling post-retirement. And the spotlight had moved off of those guys. And not only did they not make the big money back in, we're talking like, 80s and early 90s, but they were struggling and they were forgotten about, and we wanted to kind of shine the light back on, not just to the stars, but the guys who might have been part of. If you think about the Showtime Lakers, 7, 8 guys come to mind, but there were like 40 guys who won rings in the 80s that people might not remember. So we saw sort of a little bit of a void in the sports content landscape, and I didn't realize that I really loved doing what you do, was sitting there talking about stuff. I mean, learning about people, where they started. I actually started a show on Time Warner, which was previous to Spectrum, on the Laker channel called Through the Lens, where I would just sit and talk to a Laker personality, Jeannie Buss, Gary Vitti, James Worthy, whoever, about their career through my photos. And I never thought I could be on the other side of the camera. I never envisioned it, but I took to it. I loved it. And Norm Pattis, the great late Norm Pattis, who owned Podcast One, who you remember sat courtside right in the middle. The guy who always had the program. A crazy Laker fan, became a great friend, and he became a mentor, and he was helping me sort of cull this idea of Legends of Sport. And he calls me over before a game. He goes, Andy, I saw the show you did on the Laker Network, and I love it. It's great. It's great. You're talking to people. And I said, thank you, Norm. He goes, I got to get that on my podcast network. And this is like 10 years ago. And I'm still working as a photographer. And I said, I literally looked at him. I said, Norm, thank you for that, but I don't know what a podcast is. I'd heard the term. He goes, it's like radio, but it's just longer interviews. And then I said, well, Norm, with all due respect, I appreciate you wanting me to, take this to your podcast network, but it's a visual show. Like we're showing pictures. Can you curse on this show? You can, right?
Yeah.
So he says to me, Andy, nobody gives a shit about the pictures. They want to hear the stories. Says they want to see the pictures. They'll go to your website. They'll go to your Instagram.
Right.
So I said, Norm, let's do it. And the next day, literally went down to his office in Beverly Hills. We hammered out something, and here I am doing a podcast. And we're in, deep into season 7.
Congratulations.
I don't know, 260 or so interviews, and I love it.
Yeah. I love it too. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it for you. Before we get you out of here, I'm going to put you on the spot one last time. Your favorite event that you've covered.
Favorite event?
You only pick one.
Oh,
Across all the sports, all the greatness you saw, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Actually, give me 2.
Well, I'd have to say when the Dream Team won the gold medal in Barcelona in 92, that was really amazing because I had been with them all 7 weeks, documenting every step of the way, lived with those guys, and we all knew they were going to win. But the moment was, when the flag goes up and they got the medals on, it was like insane. So that was so great to capture that. And then, MJ's first championship was unbelievable. But I got to really point to 2010 for Kobe's 5th ring, which he always said was... That was a
redeemed season because they lost to Boston the year.
Yeah. And he, and it was devastating when they lost in 2008. And he said at the time, he said, I'm not retiring until I beat the Celtics in the finals. And so they got there, and that was such a monumental series, the Game 7 at home. Yeah. He didn't have a great game, as
Ron
you know.
Hit that shot, right?
Yeah, but in his greatness, he was able to defer, and Meta hits that shot like out of nowhere. Yeah. So it was such a great moment to be there. And my wife was there, my late mother-in-law was there, and to have family there and be part of that was really amazing.
What up? This is Matt Barnes, one half of All the Smoke, and I'm really excited to announce our new partnership with StockX for 2025. You already know how particular I am with my shoes. That's why I rock with StockX. They have access to all the early releases.
Doesn't matter if you're hunting those rare Jordan 1s or trying to find the latest drops. StockX is your bridge to sneaker and streetwear culture.
Plus, their market data lets you know exactly what everything is worth. I've been collecting all the Travis Scott Jordans, but now with StockX, there's price transparency. No more guessing what's fair. You see exactly what things are selling for.
Hit StockX.com right now and level up your collection. StockX, now you know. This episode is brought to you by Captain Morgan, America's #1 spiced rum. This is the season where underdogs rise, brackets break, and every shot can turn players into legends. Some stories are written on the court with buzzer beaters and game-winning plays, but other stories are made off the court when you and your crew follow the captain within and turn every party into legendary moments. So grab your crew, grab a captain and cola, and make it a story worth telling, because legends start when you follow the captain. Visit followthecaptain.com for more. Please drink responsibly. Captain Morgan Original Spiced Rum, 35% alcohol by volume. Captain Morgan Rum Company, New York, New York.
Recently,